Welcome to the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast, episode number 174. Hi, I'm Chris. Thank you for joining us today.
And I'm Jill. Chris and I are your hosts for this podcast and the founders of the Becoming Ellie community.
We decided to name our community Becoming Ellie because Ellie was the Norse goddess of aging who beat Thor in a wrestling match. Jill and I thought we want to be like Ellie, fit and strong as we age.
You can find out more about the Becoming Ellie community and this podcast at our website, becomingellie.com. Ellie is spelled E-L-L-I. Sign up for our newsletter while you're there.
Hey, here's a shout out for a 5-star review from Lynn Fab. Fit Strong Women Over 50 has been a delight since I have discovered and listened to some podcasts. With guests having the spotlight, Chris and Jill's inquiries and feedback result in great conversations with interesting information. This format is pleasant, and I plan to listen and learn from Fit Strong Women Over 50. Thanks, Jill and Chris. And thank you, Lynn Fab, for your review. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Today, we're talking with Jill Johnson about how she went from not being able to walk to kicking ass in the gym. Let's go to the podcast. When Chris and I saw what Jill Johnson posted on social media at the beginning of this year, we knew we wanted to talk with her. 3 years ago, she was not walking. Fast forward to the end of 2024, when she was able to pull a sled with 4 plates equaling 245 pounds for nearly 50 feet across the gym floor. The video she posted is also inspirational. She attributes her success to surrounding herself with the right people, a strongman competitor who saw her potential and a coach who knew how to unlock it. She obviously knows about overcoming challenges, getting strong, and being motivated.
Jill is the president and founder of Johnson Consulting Services, a management consulting firm specializing in strategy development. She is the award-winning author of Compounding Your Confidence. She lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Welcome, Jill. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here with you today. This is going to be a fun conversation.
Well, I'm delighted that you're here. So let's just start with maybe a little background. Why were you not walking 3 years ago? Was it an accident, illness?
No, so I have bone-on-bone knees, really bad arthritis in both legs. And during COVID, I got a gel injection. So I had upgraded from the steroid shots to the gel injection. And because we were not really moving or active, not only was that creating problems, but I had every side effect you could have from the gel injection. So I was pretty much immobilized in my house. And over that 6-month window, my husband would catch me crawling to the bathroom because I had so much pain in both legs that I just simply couldn't walk like a normal person. I couldn't go shopping. I really couldn't do anything. And when the world finally started opening back up, I was in trouble and I didn't know what to do. So I asked my doctor for a referral to physical therapy. And when I got to PT, she said, your right quad is not firing at all and you have glute amnesia. So I had lost the ability in my body to organize your body motion, if you will, to be able to walk. And so I was pretty much starting at scratch when, I was doing my PT and it was all out of pocket. And I'm like, for that kind of money, I can hire a personal trainer to walk me through clamshells and leg lifts and, with no weight on them. So you sit on your chair and you do, 10 leg lifts. And that was even hard initially because I had no control, if you will, over where my body was at. Now, I was a competitive gymnast, so that was a really frustrating element for me. I just decided that I couldn't rely on a pill. I wasn't going to have the surgery because I was too debilitated. Knee replacement wouldn't have been successful because I was so debilitated at that point. I needed to rebuild to even think about it. And so that began my latest journey for recovery.
So you went from physical therapy. What led you to a personal trainer, and how did you find them?
Well, it was a couple things. So I've had trainers off and on throughout most of my adult life, more off than on. I have a very sedentary profession, so periodically I would go through these spurts of working with a trainer. And I had a severely herniated disc in my early 50s. It's like the 50s, everything started falling apart. And it was a trainer after I had started to recover that we were rebuilding strength. I was using the pool, doing very light lifting, nothing like I'm doing right now. And so when I was dealing with the physical therapy, because it was all out of pocket, our insurance isn't that great. And at that point, I started doing the math going, I can hire somebody to work with me, 1 or 2 days a week for a month for what it's costing for one visit where they give you a sheet of paper and you go home and you do it on your own. And I like working with other people. Think being solo sometimes makes it hard. And so we had been looking at a gym that was going to open by us before COVID hit. And then after it hit, then I started going there and just found the trainer at the trainer's and I said to him, "Do you know anything about knees?" He's like, "Well, I had knee surgery." I'm like, "Okay, because our only goal is to not hurt me." And, that was really, really clear on that. And you have to understand at that point, I could walk, but I couldn't stand for long periods of time. Walking was a bit with a limp, if you will. I looked a little like Quasimodo, and it was sad. But that first trainer back was really very gentle with me. And that's exactly what I needed, was somebody who wasn't going to push me very hard. And then our gym closed. We got transferred to another gym in their corporate system. He lasted a couple of weeks and said, "I don't want to work here anymore." So he quit. But before he left, we were at the trainer's desk. And I said, well, how am I going to find somebody? Because I like to work out in the early evening. And there was a young guy sitting down at the other end. And Chai turned to him and said, "Hey, do you know anybody who's, can work at night?" And the other guy goes, "Well, I can." And I said, "Do you know anything about knees?" He said, "Yeah, I had bad knees and a bad knee surgery." And, he was like 19 or 20 years old and his name was Johnny. And so Chai transferred me to Johnny, and then I worked with Johnny for 2.5 years. And then he got a great opportunity with a really fabulous, large chain. But the dues would have been, like 3 times, 4 times more. The training fees would have been more than double. And so we both knew I wasn't going to follow him to there. And I said, "What do I do?" And when I started working with Johnny, I could not march in place. So I had progressed quite a bit with Chai and I was doing better. I could do some squats, I could do some that, but I couldn't march in place. I couldn't really walk my stairs. I'd have to hang onto the railing or, lean up against the wall. And he worked with me really, really hard. And so we started, reawakening body awareness and balance and getting, neurons to fire and muscle fibers to boost up again. And so when by the time I left with Johnny, and he was just great, but he said, "I think you need a hardcore gym," because I'm pretty aggressive when I work, but I need that support to make sure I don't hurt myself. So I went to our Metroflex, which for any of your listeners, Metroflex is a nationwide, nationally, internationally known hardcore gym where bodybuilders go to work out and to train for bodybuilding competitions. And, we've got a couple guys who are like wanting to be on the Mr. Olympia stage and all the rest of it. And then in walks me. And the owner kind of was like, "Okay, let's have a conversation." And I said, I want to train 2 days a week. And I want somebody who's going to push me a bit, but keep me safe. And so it ended up that he said he would train me. His name is Raleigh DeGraio. And Raleigh is well known around the Twin Cities area. And so that first month, he's kind of testing me and whatever. And now I'm training, with the world-class strongman and I've got other guys in the gym. They know who I am. And it has just elevated to some pretty impressive levels. I just did 160 pounds on the leg extensions the other day. That was a new personal record. And what was so funny about that is that was at the end of a workout, and we were doing some photos for for you. And they're like, okay, well, we want to make it look good. And I did like 6 of them. And he was just laughing because I'm really moving all right. And I did some other back thing yesterday and I lifted 100 pounds with that with no problem. And, I look back at the journey and it's just like, wow, it's been quite incredible.
You've really made some progress.
I
Some
have.
real progress.
Wow. In basically 3 years.
Yeah, pretty much.
Impressive. All right. So your goal was to walk and improve your lower body muscle. I've never heard of glute amnesia, by the way. That was
Look it up. It's a real thing.
okay.
It
But
forgets how to work.
was it just getting the trainer that sort of pushed you into doing so much that you're doing now, or what really motivated you to head in that direction?
Well, you have to remember, I think, as we age, we often take things for granted. And in some of the work that I do, I deal with a lot of aging services and in senior living communities. And you'd go into these communities and you'd see extremely obese people who couldn't walk. They had no lung capacity. They had no muscle strength. The less muscle mass you have, the greater the likelihood that you're going to need care, and you're going to be in a higher level of care if the more help you need. So if you need a 2-person transfer to get out of bed to move, you will be in a nursing home. And it was a wake up call for me as I started feeling better. I was in pain every day. Everything hurt. It was systemic. And Johnny and I, the previous trainer, started talking about nutrition. And, he kind of seeded it in because I was ragging on him. He needed to get some more certifications. So he went and got certifications that made a difference to me. And he said, he talked about what I was eating. And, I was still eating a lot of sugar, a lot of crap, and things that, a lot of processed foods, and all of those things, when you're younger, your body can counteract that. But, I'll be 65 in May. That's the one thing I know I did not put anywhere on those social media posts because I look younger than I am, but nobody realized that, quite how old I was. But it was like, look, I need to do that. And the other thing for me was, aside from thinking very long term, is my father and mother and my older brother all died at the age of 64. So this
Ooh.
last year has been a massive rethinking for me. I remember telling my physician a little over a year ago when I went in for a physical, I said, I'm not dying at 64. And she's like, no, by the way, we're taking you off your blood pressure medication because you've worked out I had lost some weight at that point. I've lost 35 pounds in total since I started this process, plus a lot more muscle mass, obviously. And she said, but your blood pressure is back to normal, because I'd been off of it for a little while because of some insurance questions. And so they never put me back on it. But so I was starting to get more physically fit, and it was showing up in my medical. Blood work was great. Blood pressure didn't need meds anymore. So I took that. And then, as I was rethinking this whole year, it's like, I need to elevate it. And that means I need to take responsibility. I can't let other people just encourage me. I have to do some of this myself. So I changed how I was eating. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm taking a lot more responsibility for, eating better more often. I also started to boost, because Johnny also encouraged me, said, I think you need more cardio. And, God, walking on a treadmill, could you be any more boring? But, so I would go to the gym and I would do a little I would do maybe 20 to 30 minutes of cardio before we would work out. And my stamina was improving too in all of this. Well, then I started riding, we got my bike fixed, and I started riding my bike around the neighborhood on Saturdays and Sundays. Walking is still too hard because of the pounding on the cement, but I discovered that I could be in a position to ride the bike rather than walk. And so that started to, again, boost my energy level. And then at this gym, Raleigh has now that he's kind of figured me out, he's pushing me all the time. And so we're doing high interval training. We are doing these, sets with 4 different exercises, and then he's timing them.
Oh, those 1 minute on the minute things?
Oh, Lord.
E-moms, every minute on the minute.
I don't even know what they're called, and he'll have you do like 3 in a row, and the last one, my heart's practically pounding out of my
Right.
Yeah.
but my cardio fitness is improving as well.
Sure.
And so it's all of these calibrations and recalibrations. And so what I've decided now is, who knows what's next, and all these guys are like, "You're so strong." And I'm like, "I'm not going to compete."
Well,
Famous
if you
last
did, you would probably do very well.
Yeah, stand in front of everybody in a bikini is just
No, I don't
compete like that. No.
That's bodybuilding. Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
I'm
But
like, but yeah, I don't who knows?
like, there must be a strength contest, like
I
bench
don't
press.
I've never asked. It could be a very interesting thing, but Raleigh will probably listen to this and now he'll
Yeah,
come.
and now that you're hitting your next age group category, that might be a thing.
Yeah, that could be a good thing. But I think it really just comes back down to wanting to take responsibility and take some control back. And I think, as women, we're always at everybody else's mercy, our job, our family, the older adults that we care for, the young people in our lives, the work that we do. And we're always last in line. And I know that was the thing for me. I just never prioritized the activity until it became an urgent situation. And what I do now is I schedule my workout. So I've got 2 days a week. I really would like to boost that to 3, but I'm finishing up. I was doing stretch at a place called Stretch Lab, and where it's activated stretching with you. And as a former gymnast, for me that was really great because apparently I'm still flexible for my age too. And so I've got to get caught up on that. But then I think I'm going to switch back and then I'll be able to do, another day at the gym. And then when the weather is better, I've already told them I'm going to start riding my bike to the gym because it's 5-minute drive from my house. It takes me 10 minutes to ride the bike there. And they've already told me where I can put my bike in the building so it won't get stolen. It's incorporating those little things. And it's also being active enough. I go shopping now. I actually go to the stores, and you ladies will love this. Those big jugs of water? They're like, I don't know, 5 gallons or 5 liters. They weigh 41 pounds. Well, I'm lifting those babies up and putting them in my cart, bags of cat litter. And I had somebody stop by when I was trying to put some stuff in my car, and they're like, "Do you need some help?" I'm like, "No, I got I got it. I can even bring it in the house now." My husband's like, "What is going?"
You mentioned about scheduling and, you're prioritizing. Was there a point where you felt like you had to get the courage or get your mental state to a certain point to begin to get stronger? Was that ever an issue for you, the mental determination that it takes?
Well, yeah. I mean, certainly, I think initially, I didn't really struggle with going to the gym because I'm old enough now. I just don't care what other people think as much. I think when we're younger, we're all, "Oh, what are they gonna? I don't look good in these pants or whatever." And now I'm kind of like, I got all these young guys around me all the time, and I'm like, I could be their grandmother. And the issue for me is this is for my health. This is for my longevity. And if you're going to sit and judgy, boys, I got news for how that's going to go for you the rest of your life. And so I just, I moved past that, but I think the mindset was I need to do this. It really had gotten to a point where I could have continued the way I was, and I would probably need assisted living. If I had not started walking more, I wouldn't have been able to do my profession. Initially, the goals when I first started working with Chai is I need to be able to stand for an hour-long speaking engagement in Atlanta. I'm also a professional speaker, and I had a major client that I had accepted, and I'm like, I'm going to have to stand for this, and there's Q&A, so I'm going to have to go up and down the stairs, and I'll never forget, from the stage. And I remember sometimes I'm kind of a smart ass when I'm on stage, and I just say, how many of you have watched Ted Lasso? And of course, everybody in the room is raising their hand. And it's a show on Apple Plus for those of you that don't know. And it's about a soccer team. And there's a character on that whose name is Roy Kent. And Roy is he's the old soccer player on the team. And so I said to the audience, I said, well, I have Roy Kent knees. And his knees are really bad. And I said, so we'll see how this goes. I got to get down these steps. And somebody in the crowd yells out, do you swear like Roy Kent? Because he had a pretty potty mouth. And I said, well, we'll see how the stairs go. And the whole room just lost it. So I had them on my side in case I couldn't get down or back up. But that was the micro goal, was that, and then it was being able to walk at a conference. And, and I used to have a lot of assistive devices that I was using. So I had, kinesio tape and knee straps and, all sorts of things. But the reality is that by fixing the physiological issues of the muscle structure of what was supporting or not supporting my knee made all the difference in the world. I very rarely have the kind of knee pain that I had before. I've got all sorts of devices and creams, and I use them all as needed. But I'm able to walk now distances that I could not walk before. And it's because I really pulled it all together. And I found a team of people who would help demystify it for me and break it down. So like I said, climbing the steps, I can now climb my steps, but that goes back to when I first started working with Johnny and I couldn't march in place. If you think about it, marching in place is similar to going up steps. And so I had real issues with being able to lift my leg. The hip flexors were a mess, and, with the glutes not working, everything else. So, and then he would do drills where I would be, doing, like stepping on, like 5 or 6 inch plates, big giant plates. And so he broke the mechanics of that skill down into very micro progressions. And it was the micro progressions that allowed me to be able to, I'll never forget, I was at a conference, and when I came out of the main ballroom, the only way to get to the breakout rooms that were right up above me was to go up basically what was the equivalent of 3 flights of steps that were straight in front of me, or to go all the way down to the end of the hall, up the escalator, and then come all the way back to where I was. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to try it. I can always rest if I get stuck. So I'm going to do the stairs. But I started chanting to myself, glutes and quads, glutes and quads, glutes and quads, glutes and quads, glutes and quads. Next thing you know, I'm at the top of the steps, a little out of breath, but not too bad. I stood there and texted him to tell him what I had done, because it was all of a sudden, it was like it put it all together. Now, I'm still a work in progress. I'm going down the stairs because I'm still trying to figure out where my body positioning should be. But I'm starting to do. I look like a toddler, but I'm able to go down the stairs now most days without having to grab on and hang onto a railing, and that's just going to continue to get better and better the stronger I get as well.
Well, you just sort of answered my question, which was, are there any mantras that you use or key phrases that help motivate you?
We anticipate what you were about to say or what.
You absolutely did. You've done this before, haven't you? I think, at the gym now, it's really interesting because Raleigh, my coach trainer now, he trains all these world-class bodybuilders. So his eye for adjusting and micro improvements is supremely refined. And he's also really exceptional at putting compound exercises together. So, you might be doing some weightlifting, and then you're doing some other thing, and then you're doing a third thing, all as part of your set, if you will. I like the challenge. So he's mixing it up. And so for me, I just do what he tells me to do. And I'm a pretty good mimic. So my form is really good. And it's kind of like, I don't need a lot of correcting, which is great too. And, so then it's just a matter of most of the time I don't bother counting until I just, he'll go, that's 20, stop. I'm like, oh, okay. And forget. But, I just kind of let myself be in the flow when I'm doing that. The same thing like with riding my bike. Johnny had talked to me about trying to get outside more. I was locked inside all day, every day, right? I'm like, he's right. I need to get out into the sun or, at least some semblance of outdoors. And so initially, I didn't push the bike hard, riding hard. And by the end of this past, by the fall, I was walking for about a mile in one of our nature centers. They don't have heavy sidewalks there. They've got more of that, what's like mulch and stuff. So it's a little less stable, but it's not as hard. And so I started walking in the nature center, and some days I would ride my bike and do the nature center walk. And when I look back 4 years ago, none of that was even a wish. I just wanted to be able to walk to the bathroom. And so I think it was that discipline and determination to take responsibility and then find the right people who could help me to access. Because when I was a gymnast, I was a competitive gymnast. I wasn't just some kid that went to the gym. I was the first girl in my hometown to go to state in gymnastics. And that was after I had major surgery. So I've had a few of these rebuilding episodes in my life before. And this just it unlocked some old memories of you can do this and finding that pathway to making it happen again and making it work.
So you mentioned you were a gymnast. So you were athletic as a young person, and then in your 20s and 30s, still athletic, or?
Not at all.
Okay.
I have, as a management consultant, it's a head career, right? So you would cut your body off below your neck and you're sitting all day. You're not.
Lots of meetings.
It's all meetings. It's meetings. Oh, and meals and events and dinners. So you're
Right.
and
Food that you didn't actually pick. It was somebody
no,
else
and I
picked it.
never ever passed up the dessert. I did yesterday at the gym. Somebody brought in all these donuts, and I just walked right past it. And Raleigh was like, "Aren't you going to have a donut?" I'm like, "No," and just shut up about it. I don't want to. I don't want to think about it.
Good for you. That's
But
hard.
but it is. And again, like I said, I'm not perfect. But when I can make those better choices, it's better for me.
Yeah.
But in that career, so I had, a lot of years of career where I was sitting constantly, eating crap, and the weight just came on and on and on and on. When I had the herniated disc, I got a little bit more disciplined. I did my rehab. It was baby rehab and compared to what I'm doing now. But I had 7 months where I walked with a cane. It was pretty brutal and very painful. Plus I had the bad knees on top of it. So I was kind of a wreck back then. So, but I found forgiving places. So for me, I started yoga back then. I did the pool, a lot of walking and movement in the pool. I'm not a swimmer. I'm more of a drowner.
Did you say drowner?
Drowner. Yeah. This is our phy ed teacher in 8th grade flunked me for swimming because I'm not very good. But I had one of those weight belts that you could wear. So I could, dog paddle with that. But mostly for me, the pool was about moving in the water. And then with yoga, the first yoga class I took, it was a wine and yoga, and it was WINE, not WHINE, but I chose that it was going to be the wine with the H. And I remember, I'm in the back of the room, and she's like saying, before the class started, and I said, just so you know, I'm not doing any of that upward barking cow thing. And she looked at me like I had because I didn't know. And I laughed my way through the whole yoga class because I could barely do any of it. Now, again, this was the competitive gymnast, can't handle a baby yoga class. So I ended up going to class probably once a week, sometimes twice a week. And I just got better over time because you start to figure it out, if you will. And then when the disc herniated, I kind of had to start all over again. And so I found some more gentle ways. But then that's the point at which I went back and started working with a trainer. I had trainers earlier on in my career, off and on, when I was doing occasional exercise here and there. But I ended up, when I left the place where I was doing that, I had a long period where I had no support for anything. And I was on my own and not doing the gym and had 90 million excuses. I was still paying the monthly gym fee, but I had all the reasons for not why I could not make the time to go. And then, when COVID hit, it was just, wow, this is different. And oh my God, I'm now 64. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Bing, 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 bing. That's a magic number in your family.
Yeah, it's just like all the little red lights are going off. And I'm like, I have to get this together. I have to find a way to be as strong as I can be, as fit as I can be. Now, I still have a lot of weight left to lose, but I'm in a place now where people are noticing. I had a guy come up to me, one of my other fellow professional speakers, and we were together at a meeting, and he came up and he's like, I have to ask you something, but I don't want to offend you. And I'm like, oh, for gosh sake, Jermaine, just ask. And he's like, well, have you lost some weight? Like, yeah, I actually have. And I was like, because you look great. You look great before, but you look great. And then somebody else said to me after they saw that video, they said, you realize you need new headshots. And I'm like, why? And it said, well, those are only like a year or two old. And she said, well, you don't look anything like your picture anymore. I'm like, wow. Because she said, because you've lost enough weight. And I'm in that weird in between stage where clothes don't fit anymore. And so I just went through, I had 20 some pairs of pants that I tried on and only 3 fit. The rest were all way too big. And I've got more clothes to go through to try and cycle back out again. And it's a tough problem to have, but there's nothing I hate more than clothes shopping. So, because I'm 5'1.5" on a good day. And I'm like, it's just not my thing. And, and all the guys at the gym are like, oh, we'll go shopping.
Okay.
They all like cats and they can cook. So, ladies, if you're looking to meet some men, there's some really great men at these hardcore fitness things that are definitely prize men to find.
That is, just as an aside, I have noticed that often the men who are really into weight, who are hardcore weightlifting kind of people, often are very nice men. Not all of them, but many of them are.
Absolutely. No, I will tell you that my experience at this gym has been really great. I mean, very, very welcoming. And, people know my name now. At all the other gyms, nobody knew who I was. They would watch and stare because sometimes, I was doing things that they didn't think somebody who looked like me should be able to do. And when I did that heavy pull, that was the video that started this all with you. What wasn't on the video was the applause that I got afterward, because there were 2 bodybuilders that have their pro. One of them, I'm sure, has his pro card. I think the other might as well. I didn't realize they had been watching me. And when and when I got to the end and I did my thing like this with my hands up in the air, I couldn't quite see them, but I could hear the applause. And then as we were moving to our next rotation, I went to Flavio, who's the strongman I train with sometimes. And I'm like, Flavio, were they applauding for me? And he said, absolutely. He said, we celebrate successes of each other and personal bests and things like that. And it was like, wow, this is a whole different dynamic. And I even went out for Thai food on Sunday with several of the guys from the gym. They welcomed me enough to include me in, an outside gathering. And I'm like, wow, I think I've made it now.
That's great.
That's nice.
But I've learned more about cooking from these guys. My husband does all our cooking, and it's like these guys, they have it all hooked up. They know exactly what they're doing.
You've written a book called Compounding Your Confidence. And
yes,
I'm assuming that has more to do with business, but I'm just curious, are there any lessons in it that pertain to fitness or?
It's been a while since I wrote it, so I know I talk about my gymnastics experience in high school, and one of the things that I do talk about in the book. So I have 3 principles that I address through the book. it's that our confidence builds over time. And this holds true for me in the gym as well. You start where you are, and then you look at how are you going to build your progression. So just like I said with Johnny and the steps, and the starting with the marching to now stairs, that was a progression. We started one area and then we did micro improvements to get to the next level. And then when you hit the next level, you start all over again and you continue from there. So progressions is a key thing. And I learned that in gymnastics. The second part is practice. You aren't going to get stronger unless you do. You're not going to have good form unless you practice. You're not going to see gains and improvements unless you're in the arena, if you will. And so practicing and finding opportunities for practice. I still park close to the building sometimes because I'm always afraid something will happen, but I maybe walk a little further in the store than I might have. And, so for me, that's that added activity and practice. And then the third area is presentation, how you bring yourself to the world. And I think that's one of the reasons the guys at the gym have been as welcoming is they see how much I'm putting into each workout that I do. They can, it's okay for me to grunt there. I love that because they know I'm doing it. And I've had, a couple of them say, you take it to, you have a whole different gear, when I'm really pushing that one extra, that try. Other people observing you is that presentation part of it. So they're able to see who you are and what you bring to what you do. And so in the book, I talk about all of that. Thing I learned in gymnastics after I went to state was I realized that I set my goal too low. And I talk about that in the book. The goal shouldn't have just been to get to state. The goal should have been to compete well and place at state. But I didn't have enough knowledge about the other competitors in Wisconsin because where I lived, we were so far away from all the major schools in Madison. So I had no frame of reference. But as I sat and watched finals, I realized that if I had hit my routine, I was as good as the girls who were in finals. And that was a, kind of a gobsmack shocker because I had no frame of reference for it. And so, I look back at all these things and it's, will I ever hit 170 pounds on the sled? I don't know. I'm sure Raleigh will think up some other new torture activity for me at the gym, but I'm game. I'm all in. Like, bring it on. Let me see what I can do. I don't want to get hurt. That's my smart about it. And if any of it had hurt, I would have stopped. I know we were trying to do some sidestep jumping thing one night that should have been no big deal. And I did like 3 steps of it. I'm like, no, I can't do that. I can feel it in my knee. Nope, not going to do it. I'm old enough. I get to set a limit.
So when you were doing your exercises, you talked about baby steps and marching, your glutes and quads kind of thing, and hip flexors.
Yeah.
What exercises did you start with and then to progress to?
It really wasn't, I just let Johnny tell me what to do because I had lost so much of the awareness of all of that. I trusted him to find a way to break it down and for me to be able to do it. And the best part about him, you have to remember, he was like 19, 20 years old and he did not laugh at, I was laughing at me, but he didn't laugh at me. It was that chemistry of trust, if you will, that built up over time, when I had to let him go so that he could have that next step in his career. I felt like, well, what about me? But, he helped me to figure out somewhere else to go. And there I've now found other people that I can trust that are working with me at the next level. I'm probably at a level that Johnny and I wouldn't have gotten at as quickly because they see things differently. And so it's, again, you find and you continue to level up and build that confidence. But I think for me, it was I just trusted him and he broke it down. And he, like I said, he started marching in place and, I was all over the place. Oh, Lord have mercy. And now I do balance exercises. Part of that is a balance thing. And so, I'll be blow drying my hair on one foot, or I'll be bending over on something. And I was on one of the sleds at the gym one day and about a month ago, and I wasn't even thinking about it. And I just kind of was stepping on it. It was only maybe 2 inches off the floor. And I was standing on it, and then I just kind of let go, and I was like standing there balancing. I thought Raleigh was gonna have a heart attack. He's like, "You shouldn't be doing that. You might fall." I'm like, I think I'm okay, but yeah. So I still have to do my right leg just to prove I can. But it's those things. I let the dog out and I stand on one foot. And because I think that's another part of it when you think about as you get older, our balance is often the reason that people fall. And so I'm trying to create some opportunities of instability that will allow my body to remember how to recover its balance. And so, sometimes I'll get on a Bosu ball and sometimes I'll, just do other things because I'm feeling better enough to be able to try and push myself in small ways here and there, but it's really sad. When I go to the gym on my own, I just never push as hard as I do when I've got people with me, or
Sure.
challenging me. I respond to a challenge really well, and just like tell me I can't do it, and that just like elevates it to a whole different level. But that's the best part I think about what getting fit at this age, or getting fitter, I should say. I'm still a work in progress on the getting fit part. But I think it's those little challenges that, sometimes we've forgotten that we're capable of more. And, when I've worked with my senior living clients, Mayo Clinic's senior living community was a client of mine for almost a decade, and we rebuilt their fitness center. I've had a couple clients where that's been, a key part of the work that I've done is getting their fitness centers rebuilt. And I interviewed 90 Mayo physicians about aging well and what are the elements of it. And I created for Mayo what was called the 12 Strategies of Healthy Aging. And we were using it as a marketing tool for the site. So I've known all of the things to do. It's just actually doing them, prioritizing myself enough to make that happen. And they say that, fitness will impact your cognitive health. Eating better will impact not only your health, but your cognitive health. And, as we age, the things that we can do to preserve our cognitive capability are as vital as what we do with our body. Because for most people, the thing they're most afraid of is getting Alzheimer's and dementia. And so understanding that there actually are some things you can do that are beneficial, based on the literature, and, the less sugar you eat, that's a good thing. And the more you do fitness, that's a good thing. If you can speak a foreign language, that's a good thing. So I had our team at Mayo one day came back to me and they were like, you're going to be really excited about what we've come up with. I said, what's that? And they said, well, we're going to have our fitness class. So you have fitness and social. So those are two together. And that's why classes are so good for people. Working with a trainer is so good because there's social interaction. But they said, we're going to we have a Chinese intern and we're going to have her teach the class in Chinese.
Oh
So
my gosh, that's a challenge too.
Well, they were going to count Chinese. I mean, it was pretty
Okay.
but it was the idea of the trifecta, if you will, of taking it to that next level. And I think people often, because they're counting pennies and they're like, oh, I can't pay for the class, I can't go to the gym, I can't pay for a trainer. They forget that there's an investment here that is, creating an opportunity where you can be part of a social community, even if you're not interacting with a lot of the other people. The fact that you're with other people creates those moments. And I didn't realize how powerfully important that was until probably this last year when I really began to understand. I had been relying on Johnny. My appointments were with Johnny, and going to the gym, and the guy at the front desk knew who I was. And then, now this gym, the same thing holds true. And I think that
But you have people in the background applauding you too. And that means something, right?
oh my gosh. And the fact that I was so startled by it shows you how much I hadn't fully appreciated it yet. And I trusted Flavio enough to ask him, to be silly and ask, was that for me? It's like, I'm used to getting applause, but not at the gym. He, laughed like, yeah, it was for you. And so I think that it's, and everybody in the gym has their own story. That's the other thing is that people don't realize, when I look around at some of the other gentlemen that I train with, they're overcoming shoulder injuries. One guy he had his shoulder completely rebuilt. Another guy had a car accident 3 years ago and he's been struggling to get back so that he can, because he loved to lift, but he's, had injuries to overcome. And I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm with my people. And they understand because they're just their mind is in a different place. But it's the kind of thing where, as I've thought about it, I've reconciled myself to the idea that I want to stay fit for the rest of my life, or get as fit as I can be for the rest of my life. I don't want this to just be something that I do now. I look at the money that I spend on my trainer and the gym as an investment in my health. And I think that's such an important mind shift to make, because it would be so easy to count pennies and just go, oh man, I can't spend this money on that. I need to save it. But if you sit down and plan out, what is it you need to work on? What is it you need to do? If you need to invest, then invest. So for me, I did stretching. That was 4 years with the stretch lab. That got me through the worst of that early days, because your body starts to lock up if you don't use it. Your fascia starts to adheres together, and it becomes harder to get that full range of motion, if you will, and all of those other things. And so the stretching helped me to kind of begin to reclaim some of that perspective. And then now getting outside, I can't wait to be able to go walk in the nature center again. I won't do it now because it's really icy. And, again, I have to be smart here. I can't just do. And I'm careful when I walk, even down to the mailbox. I don't want to penguin walk to the mailbox because I don't want to fall. But every once in a while, I'll catch myself walking in my house and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was just walking like my mom. She was super fast. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I still have, and that didn't hurt either. So, it's again, all those little things. And, I think every once in a while you catch yourself by surprise and you're like, wow, I've actually come a long way. I had people at an event in November that have known me for a long time, but they only see me, maybe once or twice a year. And a couple of them came up to me and said, you are walking so much better and you're standing, because these are people that, I would be at the events with. I'm like, I need to sit, because I couldn't stand for the reception, so that was, again, another tell that, the progress is made when you've got people who barely know you that are observing those kinds of changes. I think it's really powerful. And I think we have to allow ourselves to step into those possibilities. And so for anybody who's listening that, might be feeling discouraged or like I'll never do any better. I just watched a video the other day. I saw it on X. There was a guy who had not walked since he was in high school. It had been 45 years. He'd had some kind of an accident. And because he had limited mobility, he'd gained a lot of weight, he'd lost a lot of muscle mass, and he was living in a senior living community. He's very young, but he's still living there. And they've been working with him on his diet. He's lost almost 50 pounds, and he took his first steps in 45 years. And again, he had been working with a trainer to build up that muscle mass. So there are things that you could do. And the internet didn't exist when we were all young. And, now I get all these fitness things coming up in my YouTube feed.
Yep.
And they can be a little motivating as well. So you just have to step in and start where you are and then move forward.
So food, you said you've changed your food.
Yep.
What'd you do? How does food play a role in your focus on health?
So after I herniated my disc, I tried keto. And I was on keto for about a year, and I lost 40 pounds without doing any real exercise. And then, of course, proceeded to gain it all back when I started going back to Dairy Queen.
Oh, well, okay. Dairy Queen will do
Dairy
it.
Queen will do it, right?
God love Dairy Queen. And now I have to drive past the Dairy Queen every day I go to the gym, and I haven't even been in, I have not gone through the drive-through. No,
That's how you managed to walk past those donuts the other day,
no
too.
blizzards for me. But get me into Bob's Produce Ranch with those macadamia nut cookies, and if it's not always a work. But what I've realized is first of all, it's trying not to eat as much crap. And when you think, and so you just start with that premise, and so that's things like potato chips and Doritos and crackers and processed foods. I'm trying to really limit that. I'm trying to eat things that are as close to the original food source as possible. So our standard Saturday night dinner that my husband makes for us is a steak, garlic, buttery shrimp, half-baked potato, and Brussels sprouts. 10 years ago, I never ate a Brussels sprout ever. And now it's my Saturday night treat. When I go out to dinner.
Wait, before you start out, how does he make those Brussels sprouts? I'm just curious.
Not 100% sure.
Are they roasted?
He puts them in the oven, and there's a little bit of oil on them and some seasoning.
So he
Yeah.
roasts them, yeah.
Pretty basic, but I couldn't tell you.
They are delicious that way, for sure.
He cuts them in half, and
Yeah. Okay. So he's roasting them. Yeah.
yeah, so it's pretty tasty. But because I still eat out a lot, because professionally, I'm having to go to dinner meetings and events. So events are hard because if it's a pre-plated meal, I have no choice over what I get. If it's a buffet, I try and be mindful. And so I'll put like salad on it, and then I don't put dressing on the salad because I spill on my shirt. So that's my excuse for why I don't do it. But it also is calories you don't need. And then I look for what's the protein. So if it's a chicken breast or piece of salmon or whatever it might be from the buffet. So I look for the protein. And then I look at what the veggie is. And if the veggie looks edible, I'll try and do that. I'm not always as great about walking past the dessert. I'll just own that. And I hate it when they have pre-plated desserts at the table. That's the worst. When I look at the dessert, if I take a bite of it and it's not very good, then I'm like, okay, it's not worth it. So I'll push it away. Not always, but more often I'm doing better at that. And then, at home, we're talking more about, what are we eating with, ground beef and everybody, all the guys at the gym are really into jasmine rice from Thailand. I think they all just want to go to Thailand, but they all have this. So I'm a work in progress on that. My first attempt at jasmine rice looked more like risotto. It was a disaster. And they're all still laughing about that at the gym. Like, how could you not do that? You're a really smart woman. How could you make that? Like, well, it just didn't work. And so, but again, I'm trying to eat more things that are that. So we do a lot of sheet pan meals. So it might have chicken and a lot of vegetables, So my husband, he follows a lady on YouTube this channel is Downshiftology. I couldn't tell you her name, but she has a lot of really great recipes for sheet pan, eating healthy, things like that. And so we've taken some of those recipes, and then my request has been add more vegetables to it. So if it says, half an onion, do the whole onion, that kind of thing. And those sheet pans, he'll do like a balsamic chicken, or we have a chipotle chicken that we do. Taco boats. He makes his tacos. The brown's the thing with tacos in the pan, and then you split a zucchini, and then you put the taco meat on top and put it in the oven for I don't know how long, but it magically comes out, and it's instead of having a taco with the wraps and all of that, it's just the zucchini with that.
Well, that sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one.
Those are all little things, and trying to pre-make as many meals as possible. So if he does a big sheet pan thing, that's usually worth 3 to 4 meals. And so that's really helpful because I get into trouble when I'm on my own, and then it's like, well, I don't know what to eat, then you're like fast food, but I'm not really doing the fast food anymore either. That's the other. And so it's I look for portable food that can be good. What can I eat in the car? And maybe it's a hard-boiled egg if I've got an early morning meeting and I know I'm not going to have time to eat because I'm not a morning person, but I can eat a hard-boiled egg in the car, and I can keep it in a plastic baggie so it doesn't get all over me. Those are little things, and what I'm realizing the importance of now is how much those little things compound and they add up over time. And it's that compounded impact of all of those small choices become better. But I'm not perfect with it, and I'm trying to do better. And I think that's the best you can ever ask of yourself.
That's great. So it sounds like you've made a lot of new food choices and changed your eating habits, especially being more conscious of what you're eating.
Exactly.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
I'm so honored to have been a guest with you on your show. I've loved your episodes, and just, I think your philosophy and the fact that you're sharing these messages is such a powerful thing. As women, it's so easy to get lost. We're invisible in society. People dismiss you after a certain age. And, if you have any gray hair, forget you. And I think your messaging is just such a powerful thing to share, and giving the opportunity for people like myself to share our stories, that maybe somebody will find a little bit of inspiration in, I think is a very powerful thing. And so thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
If our listeners want to follow you, where would they find you?
So on all social media platforms, I'm Jill Johnson, USA. So you can usually find me there. I'm on LinkedIn, X, Facebook, and Instagram. And or if you want to follow my business, it's Johnson Consulting Services. But I welcome the opportunity for any of your listeners to reach out and connect. Be sure to find the video and like it on YouTube.
We'll make sure that we link the video too to this.
Exactly.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. We'll talk again soon. Yeah.
Love it. I would love to come back. I'll keep you posted on the journey.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jill uses a trainer for the same reason that I do. I'm not nearly likely to push myself as hard as I'll work when someone is telling me what to do. So I know a lot of people are more self-motivated than I am, but I have just accepted that I need a trainer.
Yes, a trainer definitely makes a big difference, especially after injuries. I've used them too when coming back from different problems that I've had. And boy, I'll tell you, it's really inspirational hearing Jill talk about some of the situations she had and how far she's been able to come with her recovery.
Yeah, that whole thing about the glute amnesia and her quads not working, that would be that'd be traumatic.
Yeah, for sure. And, using a trainer, she started with physical therapy, but the trainer, I think, is what really got her to the level where she is now. Really has made a difference. The two trainers she used.
Yeah, very impressive. When we saw her on LinkedIn or wherever, that was pretty cool, just seeing her video and tracking her down.
Yeah. If you're listening to this in the car or while you're working out, you may want to track back and take a look at the show notes. I'll link to the video of her where she is doing that sled pull, because it definitely inspired me.
Yeah, definitely. If you're listening, let Chris and me know if you have some thoughts on our talk with Jill, or just how you're doing on your own fitness journey. If you have any thoughts about health, fitness, whatever, please share with us.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a message at becomingellie.com, and you can also find us as Becoming Ellie on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
Please consider joining our private Becoming Ellie Facebook group.
And if you enjoyed listening to our podcast, you may also like Aging with Purpose and Passion. Aging with Purpose and Passion is a weekly podcast designed for women in midlife and beyond who are ready to embrace change, rediscover their power, and create a life filled with passion, confidence, and purpose. Meet the women who are breaking barriers and proving that life after 50 is merely the beginning. Join Beverly Glazer, a master certified coach, psychotherapist, consultant, and mentor with over 3 decades of experience helping women overcome adversity, break free from limiting beliefs, and step into their next chapter with resilience and clarity. Wow, that sounds great, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Listen at www.agingwithpurposeandpassion.com.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a podcast worth checking out. It was great talking with you today, Chris. I'm looking forward to our next episode of the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast.
I am too. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.